Passengers barely noticed the quiet teenage girl in seat 12F, earbuds in, hoodie up, staring out at the endless blue. But when the turbulence hit and the flight crew got an encrypted call from NORAD midair, the pilot's face drained of color. Somewhere between New York and Denver, the girl in 12F wasn't just another passenger. She was Spectre, a call sign whispered across secure military frequencies. A ghost whose missions were sealed even from generals. By the time the F-22 Raptors formed up alongside the commercial airliner, every pilot in the sky was already holding their breath. Because if Spectre was on board, something was very, very wrong. So buckle in. This story isn't about a kid on a plane. It's about what happens when the world's deadliest secret has a seat by the window. Subscribe now, because once you hear what happened at 38,000 feet, you'll never look at seat 12F the same way again. The morning flight from JFK to Denver was supposed to be uneventful. Passengers shuffled through security, dragging suitcases and half-sipped coffees, each lost in their own worlds. Among them, a 17-year-old girl named Aria Daniels, quiet, unassuming, barely 5'4", walked through the terminal wearing noise-canceling headphones and a faded Air Force hoodie 2 sizes too big. Her sneakers were scuffed, her backpack small, and her boarding pass read, Seat 12F Window. No one paid attention to her, not even the gate agent who barely looked up as she scanned her ticket. To the world, she was just another kid traveling alone. But deep inside the encrypted systems of NORAD, a silent alert pinged. Spectre 1 tracking active. The moment Aria stepped onto that plane, satellite eyes shifted to follow it. The flight crew didn't know it yet, but the girl in 12F wasn't just some teenager. She was a classified operative, trained under a program so secret it didn't officially exist. Her call sign, Spectre, was known only to a handful of top brass who believed she had vanished 2 years earlier in an operation gone wrong in the Baltic. As the Boeing 737 climbed through the clouds, Aria's hand subconsciously brushed against the thin metal bracelet hidden under her sleeve, a cold reminder of who she used to be. Around her, passengers laughed, dozed off, ordered coffee. The pilot chatted easily with Denver ATC, but at 30,000 feet, Aria's instincts twitched, the kind of instinct that had kept her alive when entire squads hadn't made it back. Her pulse quickened. Something was wrong. She closed her laptop, scanning the aisle. A man 2 rows ahead, suit, clean cut, pretending to read The Economist, kept glancing toward the cockpit door. Another near the galley had a duffel bag too rigid for luggage. Aria's eyes sharpened, heart steadying in the way it had been trained to under fire. She had promised herself she was done with this life, that she could be normal. But normal didn't last long for Spectre. A sudden tone echoed through the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We've been asked to adjust our altitude due to restricted airspace ahead. The cabin lights flickered. Aria frowned. Restricted airspace? Over Kansas? She pulled down her hood and pressed her face to the window, and froze. 2 specks, metallic and fast, were closing in from the left flank. Her chest tightened. Raptors. F-22 Raptors, running a defensive escort pattern, military, not commercial. Aria's mind went tactical instantly. Either the plane was under a national threat, or they were here because of her. The intercom crackled again. This time not from the captain, but from the cockpit radio. On an open channel, Aria could hear faintly through the static. Eagle 1 to tower. Confirm passenger manifest. We have visual confirmation. Spectre is on board. The co-pilot's voice broke mid-transmission. Spectre? You mean the ghost? The radio fell silent. Aria sank back in her seat, pulse steady but eyes storming. They weren't supposed to know she was alive. No one was. Not after what happened in Riga. She closed her eyes, exhaled once, and reached into her hoodie's inner pocket, pulling out a single earpiece with a blinking blue light. Her old comlink. She hesitated, then whispered into it, Spectre online. A click, then a familiar voice from somewhere far above the clouds. Welcome back, kid. You've got company. Her fingers tightened around the armrest as the plane trembled slightly under an unexpected gust. Or was it a signal from the Raptors outside? Either way, the past she thought she buried at 16 was clawing its way back. And somewhere in the sky ahead, a mission she thought had ended 2 years ago was waiting to finish what it started. The vibration of the engines thrummed through the floor as Flight 278 leveled at 38,000 feet. But to Arya, it sounded like a warning pulse, a heartbeat she could feel in her bones. Outside, the F-22 Raptors held tight formation, their gray fuselages slicing through the clouds with unnerving precision. Inside, passengers remained blissfully unaware, except for a few who pressed faces to windows, murmuring about fighter jets escorting us. Cool. Arya's mind, however, raced through threat protocols. Raptors didn't escort civilian flights unless there was a confirmed security breach or a person of national interest on board. She shifted in her seat, her reflection in the window staring back at her, a ghost of the soldier she once was. Her comm earpiece buzzed faintly, followed by a voice she hadn't heard in 2 years. "Spectre, this is command. You've been off the grid long enough." It was General Mason, her former handler, the man who had pulled her out of a bombed-out Latvian safe house when she was barely 16. "What's happening?" she whispered under her breath, shielding her lips with her hand. "Why are the Raptors shadowing this flight?" Mason's tone was tense, more controlled than usual. "We thought you were dead, but a satellite flagged your ID tag when you checked in this morning. We scrambled an intercept, standard containment protocol." Arya stiffened. "Containment? You think I'm a threat?" Silence hummed. Then Mason said, "We think you've been compromised." That word hit harder than turbulence. Compromised, meaning enemy asset, sleeper, double agent. Her stomach nodded. "Sir, with respect, if I were compromised, this plane would already be in the Atlantic." Mason exhaled slowly. "Then prove it, Spectre. There's chatter that an infiltrator is on board, carrying intel from Operation Harbinger." "That intel was yours." Arya froze. "Operation Harbinger, classified recon, Eastern Europe, covert biotech labs, and one rogue cell that vanished into thin air the same night she did." The plane dipped slightly as the autopilot adjusted, but her focus never wavered. Her eyes scanned the cabin again, cataloging details. The nervous man near the restroom with his phone angled toward the cockpit. The woman in 14C pretending to sleep but her hand always hovering near her purse. The same rigid duffel bag by the galley, now slightly unzipped. "Mason, I've got 2 potential hostiles," she murmured. "One mid-cabin, 1 aft section. Copy, sit tight. Raptors are on comm-lock with us. If things go south, they'll take visual cues from you." Arya blinked. "You're giving them authority to follow my lead?" Mason paused. "Spectre, you're still the best we ever had, even at 17. The words made her chest tighten. She'd wanted to leave that life behind, but it seemed the world refused to let her go. She unbuckled quietly, pretending to stretch, and slipped down the aisle, moving like any bored teenager on a long flight. As she neared the galley, she caught the faint metallic click of a firearm being assembled. The man with the duffel looked up, startled for just a second, and that was all she needed. Her knee snapped forward, slamming the duffel shut and pinning his wrist before he could draw. "Wrong flight to try that," she hissed, eyes hard. But his expression wasn't one of surprise. It was of recognition. "Spectre?" he said quietly, as if speaking to a ghost. Her stomach dropped. "You know my name." "We all do," he replied, forcing a grim smile. "We were told you'd come back for the rest." "The rest of what?" she demanded, pressing him harder against the seat. He leaned in close, voice low enough only she could hear. "The Harbinger codes. You're the key." Suddenly, the cabin lights flickered again, the air thick with static. The seatbelt sign chimed on as the plane lurched sharply. Somewhere up front, a flight attendant screamed. Arya released the man, whipping her head toward the cockpit. Overhead, a warning alarm blared. The transponder had gone dark. Mason's voice crackled in her ear. "Spectre, the plane just dropped off radar. Someone's jamming your signal." Her pulse steadied. No fear, no panic. Just the quiet focus that had earned her the nickname Spectre. She turned to the man, still clutching his wrist. "You've got 10 seconds to tell me who you're working for." But he only smirked. "You already know. You just don't remember." Before she could react, he jammed something into the seat beside him, a black disc that blinked red once before the lights died completely. A high-pitched tone filled the air, followed by total silence. The entire cabin plunged into darkness as the plane dove sharply, oxygen masks dropping like ghostly fruit from the ceiling. Screams erupted everywhere. Arya fought to stay on her feet, one hand gripping the overhead compartment, the other reaching for her comm. "Command, this is Spectre. Cabin's compromised. Hostile deploying unknown device." Static answered her. Then Mason's final words broke through the noise, barely audible. "Spectre, whatever happens, do not let them take you alive." The red light on the disk pulsed faster, and somewhere in the black void of the sky, the Raptors peeled away, waiting for her signal. The aircraft bucked like a wild animal as alarms wailed and the red emergency lights strobed through the dark cabin, illuminating terrified faces frozen between disbelief and panic. Arya's muscles screamed as she fought the G-forces, dragging herself along the aisle toward the flashing device. The smell of ozone and burning plastic filled the air. Something in the avionics bay was frying. She slammed her boot against the duffel bag, flipping it open. Inside wasn't a weapon. It was worse. A portable jammer fused with an encrypted transmitter and a capsule of liquid black biogel marked with Cyrillic symbols she hadn't seen since Riga. Her stomach dropped. "Harbinger Tech, you're not supposed to have this," she muttered, voice low but razor-sharp. The man she'd pinned, now bleeding from his temple, grinned through the chaos. "Neither were you, Spectre." The plane jerked again as one engine coughed flame. Passengers screamed. "Ladies and gentlemen, brace for—" The captain's voice cracked before cutting off mid-sentence. Arya yanked the jammer's power line free, instantly clearing the static in her comm. "Command, come in. Spectre has visual on Harbinger material on board. Possible sabotage of flight systems." Mason's voice cut in, breathless. "Raptors report no external hostiles. They're seeing engine fire. Spectre, we can't risk this tech going down in U.S. airspace." Arya's blood ran cold. She knew what that meant. They'd shoot the plane down. "Negative," she barked, glancing at the crying child in 10B clutching her mother. "You pull that trigger and you'll be taking down 143 civilians." Mason's tone hardened. "If that material breaches containment—" "I'll contain it," she snapped, disconnecting. Her fingers flew over the jammer's casing, dismantling circuits by feel. The man lunged, desperate, but she caught him with a sharp elbow to the jaw, sending him collapsing against the armrest. "You're not dying for this," she hissed, prying open the capsule's lock mechanism. Inside, the biogel pulsed faintly, alive like liquid night. It was coded to her biometrics. That's why they'd wanted her. She was the fail-safe key to Harbinger's final phase. Suddenly, the intercom crackled. "Passenger in seat 12F, this is Eagle 1. We have visual confirmation of hostile interference. Awaiting signal to engage." Arya spun toward the window, seeing the lead Raptor hovering frighteningly close, its pilot's visor gleaming back at her. "Don't you dare," she whispered. She raised her hand, palm out, signaling them to hold. But the pilot's hesitation wasn't fear, it was recognition. She saw it in his posture, the way he stiffened, the subtle salute. They knew who she was. Spectre, the legend who disappeared. She turned back toward the device, slicing its power coupler with a shard of aluminum from the seat frame. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and then the red blinking stopped. For a moment there was nothing but the sound of wind and sobbing. Then the captain's voice returned, ragged but alive. "We've regained partial control, descending to 10,000 feet." Cheers broke out around her, but Arya didn't celebrate. The man at her feet coughed blood, laughing weakly. "You think this was about the plane?" he whispered. "You just activated it." "Activated what?" she demanded, but he only smiled before going still. Her bracelet vibrated, a code transmission, automatic. She froze. The Harbinger biogel, though neutralized, had triggered a remote uplink. Somewhere below, someone was receiving her exact coordinates. She reached for her comm. "Mason, we've got a secondary signal ping. Enemy uplink confirmed." Mason cursed under his breath. "Spectre, ground intercepts moving." "They know you're alive. You have to get off that plane before it lands." Arya glanced around at the terrified civilians. "I'm not abandoning them." "You don't have a choice," Mason said. If they capture you, they'll unlock Harbinger through your neural key. We can't let that happen. She closed her eyes, torn between duty and humanity, between who she was trained to be and who she wanted to be. Then, slowly, she looked back at the unconscious man. His wrist had a tattoo, an insignia she recognized instantly, the Phantom Division, a covert faction within her own program thought wiped out years ago. Her own people. The truth hit like a gut punch. They hadn't come for her to kill her. They'd come to bring her back. The bracelet on her arm blinked again, a silent code message she hadn't seen since her final mission. Spectre, mission reactivated. The plane touched down hard, tires screaming against the Denver runway as emergency vehicles raced alongside, red lights painting streaks across the night. Aria stood by the rear hatch, her hood up again, the biogel capsule sealed in a containment wrap she'd rigged from the cabin's oxygen hoses. The passengers, dazed but safe, were ushered off by trembling flight attendants. No one noticed the girl from seat 12F slip out a side service exit and vanish into the chaos. Mason's voice came through her earpiece, low and urgent. "Spectre, do not engage. Extraction team inbound." But she was already moving across the tarmac, eyes fixed on the horizon where black SUVs rolled in like shadows. "They're not yours," she whispered. "Phantom Division's here first." A bullet cracked the air, grazing the concrete beside her. She dove behind a luggage cart, adrenaline slicing through exhaustion. "You should have stayed dead," a voice called out, familiar, female. Aria froze. Commander Lyra Kane, her former mentor, the one who had trained her to disappear. Now stepping from the SUV in full tactical gear, gun steady. "You think Mason's your savior?" Lyra said, her tone cold as glass. Harbinger was never shut down. "You're the final key, Aria. Come home." Aria's jaw clenched. Home was a lie. The words barely left her lips before she hurled the capsule into the air, then shot it. The explosion was small, controlled, but enough to incinerate the biogel in a flash of blue flame. Lyra's scream was drowned by the roar of incoming Raptors overhead. Their sonic booms shattered the tension as soldiers swarmed the field. Aria didn't wait. She melted into the smoke, slipping past the chaos like the ghost she was trained to be. By the time Mason's team reached the tarmac, all they found was a scorched patch of concrete, a broken bracelet, and a single word etched into the metal cargo door with a knife. Spectre. Somewhere far beyond the city lights, a lone figure boarded a midnight freight train heading west, face hidden beneath her hoodie, eyes unblinking as the world blurred past. She had no country, no rank, no orders, only unfinished ghosts chasing her across the sky. And though the world would spin stories about the mysterious girl in seat 12F, none of them would ever know the truth, that she saved them all and disappeared into legend again. Subscribe for more untold military thrillers and secrets the world was never meant to hear.